exciting character or some narrative arc that's exciting. And one of the things that has worked for us is this new iReport system we have at CNN, which is where anybody can go online, sign up, and become an iReporter and tell your story. And in the last week, I said I was coming here, and they gave me a list of people who have done their own, started their own organization, or noticed somebody doing something good in their community and wanted it to get publicity, and they have posted their own iReport online. And these iReports get millions of views and sometimes get on air. And so it's a way to sort of wave your hand, even if you're not being called on, you get attention.
And I'm just curious, I've got one more question, but when you look at iReport, I was on it the other day looking at it, and I'm just curious, what does it suggest to you that people are looking to talk about? What stories are they looking for when you look at sort of what's up there?
Well, we actually do an assignment every day. We have an assignment desk, like these are our stories, and please file your reports. I sometimes make requests. I did a story on people facing foreclosure and is the administration's relief program working? Tell me your story. And we were flooded with responses because I'm sitting in an office in Washington. It's not so easy for me to just reach out and figure out who is in this position. We were flooded with some really compelling stories. Now we fact check them all, just like we would any report. We call them, we do research on what they say before we put them on air. But they get on air, and other people get their voices heard. If they have a very interesting story, the iReport team flags it for the reporter team, saying somebody should take a look at this. And again, it's somebody who tells the story well, somebody who's a compelling character in some way, or cute kids and pets always works.
Do we have one other question, Michelle?
I'm curious about what you all think reflecting upon the mobilization power of the Obama campaign, which you both experienced in different ways and from different lenses. What do you think the implications are for mobilization as it relates to the civic sector, and what are the lessons or the most important things that we might glean from that campaign, from the mobilizing perspective?
I want to hear Jessica's answer.
Well, I'll be frank, I think it was remarkable, and it's been, just from my perspective, sort of a letdown that it hasn't been re-energized and redirected into something else, into getting people. And I heard when the campaign ended, people were talking a lot about how can we use this for volunteering in communities, and I know there's been some effort. So I think people were probably exhausted afterwards, and they needed to give everyone a rest. But I think there's still a will to mobilize that mailing list and that distribution system to activate people. And volunteering is probably a great opportunity because people are so downcast about the political system. Maybe doing something locally in your town is the way to get people re-energized.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the things that was easy, not easy, but the campaigns always offer is there's a common goal, and the goal is to elect a candidate, and so you know what the goal is. And it's hard when communities across the country, you're like, do you do healthcare? Do you do education? Do you do energy? We faced this with United We Serve last year. It's like, how do we put the goals out there that everybody can feel like they're a part of? But I do think that technology and the mobilization has a huge power to play. It's how do you leverage the ideas, the energy, and the technology to action? And I think there's some work that we certainly need to do, but I think we and you all as a community also need to do, which is what is it that gets you from using the technology to taking action, and how do we use that information from what the inaction and action is to getting more of those things to happen. And that's certainly things that we're looking at with the Serve America Act and implementation as, can we move to goals that we can set out there as communities and see if we can reach them, and then move to the next set of goals and keep changing goals, but kind of start meeting those goals and using that as a way to mobilize around. But we're going to begin experimenting with a little bit of that going forward.
Great. We are just about out of time. So one theme that came through in the conversation, and you both had talked about this in different ways multiple times, is that we face this narrative of polarization on a national scale, but that within communities there are many people, maybe even within Washington, D.C., but surely within communities, there are lots of folks who want to get things done. And the question is, how can we find those folks, those allies, those fellow travelers, and identify something we can do together, even if it's not the most important thing, but that it demonstrates that we have the ability to get something done, and we can actually renew our faith in one another to get something done. But then you need to get attention for it. And one of the things that Jessica, I think, has, in the most succinct way I've ever heard anyone say, has said, look, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, don't come to me with your metrics, come to me with your story. Come to me with a main character who has a story attached. Come to me with an arc so that I can understand what's happening. And you better be able to say it pretty quickly because I got a lot of phone calls to do, right? But that when you do that, I'm willing to listen, and there might be a story there. Did I get that right?
Exactly.
So we need to find the folks we can work with, we need to get some things done, and then we need to package the stories in ways that journalists can see them, report on them, and make them real for the rest of America. So I thank you both for joining us this afternoon. I know you're incredibly busy. Thanks so much for coming.
That's great. Thank you.